We're on TV.
All right. Hey, everybody.
Hello. Sorry for the unforeseen technical difficulties. Well, they were kind of foreseen, I guess. We had a feeling our computer was maybe a little underpowered. It was working kind of today, and then just sort of decided that when we went to do it live, it was not going to work, but that's the way things are, and we are prepared to deal with it. So we're getting a new computer, actually, and it'll be more powered, and we'll be able to live stream by next Wednesday.
We'll say this one wasn't a mistake, just a happy little accident.
Happy little accident. So I'm Jenny, and this is Paul.
Hello.
We own VineGo. GoBox is a new thing that we've added that will allow you to get access to the live videos when they do work, and also products and paint, all the exact colors you need, and then step-by-step tutorial sheets. Right here is an example of one that you're going to be following along with me for Summer Bonfire. I know it rained all day, so this is probably a good painting too.
I was out in the rain all day. So
that's right. Paul was working out in the rain all day long, and so we're ready to paint some nice weather. It's the nice thing about the painting world. You can absolutely make your own weather. And we are actually drinking wine while we're painting because that's part of the whole VineGo thing.
Yep.
Deuce Cellar Syrah is our top choice favorite at the studio, which we've carried this for probably like 5 years or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's out of Walla Walla, Washington. Paul and I really like the rich flavor of this one, and it goes down really well. So we're gonna do a little toast. Let's toast to technology. Cheers!
Makes everything wonderful and everything disastrous at the same time.
That's right. So we've got our cute little wine glasses that were actually tiramisu jars from something we got at Costco.
We've got our own special little coasters that you guys will be getting these in next month's boxes.
Yep.
So check those out. Those are cool. There's even a little gift from us on the back of each one.
You can color the front with some good markers. But also, yes, on the back talks about our studio and the website and all that. And it also says that it's a $5 coupon on a beverage when you come into the studio and sign up for a class. So you just sign up online, bring this in, and what will happen is our staff will get you your glass of whatever beverage you choose and do a nice little stamp. Give your coaster back to you so you can keep it forever and ever if you want.
You'll have to forgive us. Our old dog wants to come in and join us, but
she's really curious as to what we're doing.
She's already tripped over the microphone stand and everything a couple of times. So. Anyway,
let's go ahead and get started. So on this particular painting, you're not going to need your deep yellow. You're only going to need craft orange and craft yellow. Not very much of those. It's just primarily for the tent and bonfire. So save that paint. You'll need it for the Tokati Falls next week. Black, phthalo blue, not a whole lot of white, save that one, not a ton of red, Bahama blue, which is your turquoise. We don't even use that in the Tokati Falls painting unless for some reason you want to. That's totally fine. So you can use that to your heart's content. It's one of my favorite colors in the studio. I order it 25 gallons at a time, and we go through it a lot. Yeah, you can see we love that color. I always tell the students at VineGo it's because it's like the color of a Tiffany box.
Good to know.
That's why all us women like that.
Good to know.
So let's go ahead and get started, and I will set this up here on the instruction sheet. Because of drying times while doing a supposed to be live painting, I will probably deviate a little bit. There's a couple things I'm going to change around the order of for how we do things. So my only rule ever, I have two. Don't wash your brush in your wine glass, and don't drink off your paint water. That's another important one, which it has happened to me before, and it was probably because I was drinking too much wine.
We never do that.
No, we never do that. Be kind to yourself. Nobody expects you to be a pro. Nobody expects you to go out and paint the Sistine Chapel or have that level of skill. I've been painting for over 20 years. Paul has been painting for over 20 years. We'll maybe talk about our little painting story later.
It's actually been 25 years for both of us.
Wow, we're getting old. So obviously I've done a lot of paintings. I can rock out trees really, really fast. I don't expect that your trees are going to look perfect the first time. But every time you do a painting, it is a awesome way to practice. And in fact, that's what all the masters did. They found old paintings underneath some of like Van Gogh's and Da Vinci's paintings where maybe they did a practice study and maybe it didn't turn out so great. So they painted over it. And I've done that a lot. So with this particular one, if you do it the first time and maybe you didn't like something you did or you're really unhappy with it, you can paint over the whole canvas. You can use white paint, but it's actually cheaper to buy something called acrylic gesso. And then you've got a blank slate again, and you can do the whole thing again. That's the nice thing about acrylic paint. It dries fast, it can be covered up, everything can be fixed. So, I think I've gone through enough speaking, and we're gonna get started as our dogs try to break down the door. So our brush bundle, now you may have bought brushes from us. This is a $12 set. We have them always available. So if you want to buy this anytime, you can. If you want to find your own brushes, we use a 1-inch flat brush, and then we use a number 8 bright, and then a number 4 round. These three seem to get me through just about every painting that I do on this size canvas. And so those are $12 a set. It's Simply Simmons brand. You can find them at Michael's. I'm not sure what they charge for them there. I do get them wholesale, and I try to pass that price level on to you guys. And then for our palette, let me move this out of the way. You can use a paper plate. That's the easiest way. But if you want to get extra fancy, we do sell these palettes for, what are these, $6?
Yeah.
These are what we use in the studio. I love them. When I discovered them, I was so happy. It's 50 sheets, and they're kind of a waxy paper. So when you're done, you just tear it off, roll it up like a burrito, throw it in the trash or whatever. It makes its own art, so you can hang it up and frame it and have your own little art there. I love looking at the palettes at the end of the class. So, okay, we're all going to take our biggest brush. They're really stiff at first because they have some kind of something on them to kind of hold the bristles together in shipping. So I always like to put it in the water cup and just kind of lightly push the bristles down on the bottom of the cup. Wow, your arms look really long in that.
It's 3D. It's 3D. It's not 3D. Sorry.
So then dry it on your paper towel. Yeah, these are the two things that you should have on hand. Some paper towels or an old paint rag. And we use old mugs that maybe the handle's broken off or whatever for
I have Starry
water
Night.
cups. Yeah, that one I've had for 20 some years and the handle just broke off like 6 months ago. It was sad, but it makes a good paint cup. So we're gonna start with the Bahama Blue right here. Beautiful Tiffany box blue. Let's go ahead and dip your brush in there. In the background, I don't use a ton of paint. There's no reason to glob it on. You could always add more. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna draw a horizon line. It's about halfway up-ish, kinda, sorta. And I hold the brush so it makes a kind of skinny line. So I'm using the skinny edge of the brush all the way across. Don't worry if it's not straight. All gonna get covered up, so you won't even see it again. Let's go ahead. We're gonna do this sweeping brush stroke from that horizon line upward. And I like to carry it up a little higher over here on the right side, just to, that's where the mountains are a little lower, so you get that nice brightness of the sky showing through. And as the sky fades, it's never an even fade. There's always gonna be lots of different color variances.
Jenny, how thick should we be putting this paint on?
Pretty thin. Like, I'm not even seeing any texture. This is a really nice opaque paint, which is why I absolutely love this paint so much. So you only need a thin coat. We're gonna need this little area to dry pretty quick. So that's why I'm just kind of spreading it out. One thing too, this is something I notice in the studio that I always talk to the students about, because it's something they don't realize. A lot of people tend to use really short brush strokes that are kind of choppy. He does that. That's his style. Monet is probably that, anything that's sort of impressionistic is that style. But if you like the smoothness of the sky on some of the paintings we do, you're just gonna run your brush, long brush strokes, end to end. Paul does kind of a cool little sweeping motion. His painting is going to look completely different than mine, which that's one of the things we love about teaching a class of like 32 people. walking around. Everybody's got the same painting, but they're all different. So some people paint interesting things.
They sure do.
On there. We had a guy do Multnomah Falls. Amazing. He was absolutely an artist. By hobby or trade, I don't know. But then he painted like a garden gnome. Really big right on the rock next to the waterfall. And it was like so out of place, but it was done really well too. Okay, so now we need this guy to transition. I'll show you the original here. We want it to transition to kind of this pinkish lavender. The way we're going to achieve that is no need to wash the brush. Just take a little red and mix it with some of your Bahama blue till you get a color you like. It doesn't have to be the same color I use. You might want yours more pink, or you might want to have it more of a soft lavender. And yeah, we're going to overlap this wet paint and brush another layer going upward a little higher. One thing I like to do once I get everything across like this, obviously I'm going to smooth it out, but I like to kind of brush back down a bit while both colors are still wet. And then you get this really awesome fade, and you can keep doing this over and over and over. And remember, long end-to-end brush strokes will give you that nice smooth gradient. I got a little more red in this one. I think that's going to look really cool. Let's see how Paul's doing.
So I was a little bit more daring, and I just mixed on the canvas.
He does that a lot, yep. A lot of people like to do it that way, and it's, if you haven't painted a lot, it can be a little scary.
It can be a complete disaster if you haven't painted a lot because you can get too much color.
But remember, everything can be covered up, so really nothing is a complete disaster with acrylic paint.
True. But
I've had my painting blow off my easel when teaching a class outdoors, and it landed face down on my palette, and I was like 3/4 of the way done with the landscape. And I managed to fix it. They got a good lesson in how to fix something like that. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime here. So now we need to transition to, let me bring this back over here, to more of, it's kind of a denim blue, like a 1970s denim, I guess. And I achieved that, again, I don't even have to wash my brush. I'm going to take a little of the dark phthalo blue, which is your dark indigo blue. Mix it into your color you've been working with. You can have some purple in it. And overlap, so you're getting the wet on wet color. And again, you're going to brush down just to get those two to fade, so that makes such a nice color transition. Yes, Paul, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was going to say, if you do feel like you want to try to mix on the canvas, what I recommend is trying just the tiniest little dab of paint, see what it does, and then if you need to add more paint, that's fine. If it freaks you out, go back and mix it on the palette until you get comfortable enough with understanding how much paint it takes.
Yeah, it's all
part
about
of the learning process.
It is all part of the learning process, for sure. That's how you do it. You experiment. What works, what doesn't, you'll learn right away. So I'm going to now use pretty much just phthalo blue. Again, no need to wash the brush. As I'm getting up here higher in the upper left corner, the sky's going to get a little darker. And that's going to make our stars really pop. Oops. And this is also going to add some drama to your sky. So it's kind of like we're using one of those pre-built-in Instagram filters. Oops, I painted on the original. We're upping the contrast. But let me pull this original over here again. And let's see how I'm lined up here. Don't want to get this too far out of the picture. There is a little black painted over the blue in this upper corner. So that's going to be your ultimate contrast there. So no need to wash the brush. Just dip it in a little bit of black. This is where we really are mixing on the canvas. I start in the corner and work my way down. You can bring this black down as far as you want, but only use a little bit. You can always add more. It's a lot harder to take it away, but it can be done. So I've got funky glare from the light. I've got this fabulous ring light here. One of our many purchases we've made for doing this, and then the live stream didn't work.
The thing we really needed to purchase
was a computer.
Yeah.
Well, we learned. There will be a lot of kinks that I'm sure the first couple months will iron out, and we feel like we have a really good head start with the products and the paintings. I'm really excited about all the paintings that we've been working on for all the months. I think we have them done through February, and then we're going to start working on spring paintings. It's really weird to be coming into fall and the holidays, Halloween, and having to figure out spring paintings. That's kind of digging on some special inspiration there. So
I will take over that because I'm not winter paintings are not my strong suit.
Yeah, our styles are very different, which that's why I think he's a good guest to have on here. You're a guest.
I'm a guest tonight.
And because I definitely tend to be where my brush strokes are a little smoother, more blended, and I do whimsical. Paul does awesome with natural landscapes. Yeah, here's the difference. You can see the two together. A lot rougher brush strokes, but it absolutely works, and people love Paul's paintings in the studio. They're just hard for me to replicate because I am a smoother.
Well, and I think that's a thing that's really important to point out is like everybody's going to have a different interpretation of how the brush works and stuff and how the paint goes on, and that's all okay.
Yep. It
It's
is
all okay.
all absolutely okay. And really no way is right or wrong.
I'm having a hard time just being a guest and not being a teacher.
You can teach along with me.
All right.
Your tips are good, Paul. Okay, so now what we're going to do is some of this light sky up in here, if you feel like when you added the purple pinkish stuff, if it kind of depleted some of your Bahama blue, you can take a clean brush, dry it off, and just take a little tiny, see how much paint I have on my brush? I work a little at a time when I'm doing this. And I'm just going to brush from the turquoise Bahama blue upward and just sort of lift that color up higher if needed. You may not need it. I always like to show that though because it's also a good way to help blend things out if you've ended up with a real stripe look. I tend to always go with the lighter color blended into the darker one. Is that what you do? The dog really wants it. Oh no, that's our daughter.
Hello, daughter.
Where's your computer?
I don't know where mine is actually. I think it's actually on the ironing board. So, okay.
We need to get one of those red lights that goes outside the door that says
Recording.
live.
Recording in progress. Okay, I think she just really wants to be on the camera.
She does. She's going to be on one very soon. Right?
Oh yeah, she'll be a guest artist. She's very good. She does a lot of digital art. So she'll be teaching me. I'm going to get a little more Bahama blue because I kind of skimped on it when I first set up the palette.
And we're sharing our palette, so
We are. So you can see what our palette starts looking like. It'll be a mess. Some people in the studio have perfectly clean palettes at the end of class. I don't know how they do it, but they manage to. So now we're going to take clean brush, Bahama blue again. That's your turquoise, your Tiffany box blue. And we need to reflect some of the sky down on the ground. So I'm just going to paint a big splotch of this kind of in the left, lower left, close to center, lower left center. Just back and forth. And it can be completely imperfect because we're going to bring some color in from the sides and it's going to sort of reduce itself and become where you can see, obviously, this is a lot darker than that is. And that's just because of the color we bring in from the sides. And it all blends together while it's still wet, hopefully. No need to wash your brush. We're going to take the phthalo blue now. That's your dark indigo. So I just put it right on there with the Bahama blue. And I like to turn my brush this way, so I'm using the skinny edge. I don't think it really matters with this particular part, but I don't know, I guess this is a preference of mine. Just let it overlap with that Bahama blue that's wet paint. Let them flirt with each other. It sounds like something Bob Ross would say. I'm gonna do both sides. We will also be getting some black in here in just a bit, but for now, just the...
One thing you'll probably find too is that one side of the canvas will be much easier for you to get your desired effect than the other side, and it's just because your wrist angle is going to be a little bit different from one side to the other. So So that's
Yeah, it also depends on if you're using an easel or not.
Yeah, that definitely does make a difference.
We are not using easels, which we do in class. I do a lot of paintings off-site though, where we'll sometimes, if it's a smaller canvas like this, we'll paint with them flat on the table. I don't have any issues with either. But for the larger canvases, definitely, easels are great and you can stand while painting.
We'll see how I do. I don't like sitting still, so this is...
I know, yeah, you don't. Okay, so this looks like a big old mess right now. And what I'm going to do really quick, before I start adding black in, I'm going to just wipe my brush off on the towel. There's no need to wash it off. So you have kind of like this ghost layer of paint on here, which you can kind of see. Ooh, let's see, can I bring it up closer? Yeah. There's no actual glob of paint. It's just tinted. And I'm just going to really lightly go over the whole thing. So I'm not pushing very hard at all. It is, what does Bob Ross say, Paul?
2 hairs and some air.
2 hairs and some air.
Or if you're going even lighter, it's 1 hair and some air.
Okay, we're probably 2 hairs and some air for this one. And yeah, I'm just going back and forth really lightly. So the reason I'm pushing really lightly is because I don't want them to overmix, I guess. I want to leave some of this lightness here without it all becoming one solid color. If that does happen and you look and you've got, oh, it's all one color, just take some turquoise again and go back in from the center, working your way out. Touch it up that way. It works really good when everything's still wet. This is where I wish it was oil paint.
That is true.
And for painting the edges, some people do it as they go along. I do it after. If I do it at all, I'm kind of lazy about painting the edges. And I don't think you ever do either.
No.
So I've got sort of this navy-ish blue. On the sides, you can see right through here, it stays primarily the color that it is right now. I'm going to not wash my brush, and I'm going to use very little black. In fact, let's do this. Let's mix a little black and phthalo blue. I'll hold this up so you can see. So a little black and the indigo blue, and you get this color that looks like you just got hit by a baseball and you've got this horrible bruise. You know what that looks like. So here's what I'm gonna do. Yes, he's had that, golf balls, baseballs, all the things. So I'm just gonna brush some of that phthalo blue and black mix in from the sides. Again, I'm holding my brush like this, so I get the linear. That's a preference of mine. You could do it this way, and it's not gonna be wrong. How are you holding yours?
I'm just very lightly towards the base top of the brush, so I don't put too much pressure on the bristles.
Yeah. The key is not a lot of paint on the brush and not a lot of pressure. You can always add. I'm going to say that over and over. You can always add paint. It's just a lot harder to take it away because when you have too much, you have to figure out where's it all going to go. It's kind of like having too much stuff in your house. Like too many books, too many magazines, too much computer equipment.
That doesn't work.
You have to figure out where it's all going to go. So I always figure with painting, you can gradually add more. Any area that you want to be a thicker texture, you can add more. But I do it a little at a time. There is one part on this painting that has some pretty epic texture. And that is in the fire. I'll point it out real quick. Right through here I used pretty thick texture with the white paint. It took a while to dry.
I think it's anytime you're trying a different color that you haven't used yet, it's a very good idea to just try a little sample and see what happens.
And again, if you've lost some of your lightness through here, take a little tiny bit of Bahama blue. Bring it back through, and that's only if you feel like it's needed. We obviously later on we come back through and put in these golden highlights. This is kind of funny because someone on our Facebook thought that the tent and the fire were in the water, and I'd never really seen it that way, and now I can't unsee it every time I look at it. And I have camped in that situation before at Detroit Lake. It was like,
I think anybody who was camping today would have been in that
yes,
situation.
absolutely. So maybe this is water. This is a camping trip today. We can actually do some things closer to the end. Maybe add some little grasses and rocks and maybe make it look less like water. I think more than anything it's the color. But I love the idea of the sky reflecting on this amazing dirt that reflects any color.
It's also the smoothness and the horizontal brush strokes.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of one of the things you really try to do when you're trying to create smooth, calm water is exactly what we just did, which is why it kind of looks like that.
Our tent's in the water.
Yep.
Okay, so by now, this should be pretty dry. Even if it's a little bit wet, you're totally going to be okay. We are going to get ready to paint this mountain range in here. And it's kind of a grape color. So the color that I mixed to get that, let me bring my palette over here. Get my big brush all washed off. And you'll always have a little residue of color on your brush. Don't worry about it. If you're really wanting to change out your water, you can do that anytime. Just pause us. Just make sure we're making a good facial expression when you pause it. Nothing like...
That was kind of cute, though.
So we are going to mix red and phthalo blue. So you get a really dark, it's kind of like a grape soda color. And I do like to lighten it a little bit, and I don't think it even mentions this in the instruction sheet, because this turquoise in the background a lot of times is wet and it just mixes right on the canvas. But I do like to add a little turquoise, Bahama blue to it to just lighten it a touch. And what that does too is it makes it more opaque so that when you're painting your mountain range, you're not like seeing through it. It's not like the great see-through mountain range. I realized I only made enough paint for me, so I'll mix a little more for you, Paul.
Thank you.
Anything for you. Okay, so painting mountains. So this is kind of like it's not a huge mountain range. I didn't like look at anything in particular. I just kind of, growing up here and born and raised in Oregon, just kind of know what the Cascade Mountains look like. To me, this kind of looks like it might be the Three Sisters, maybe?
It does kind of look like it,
yeah,
too.
We'll just say it's the Three Sisters with the tent underwater. Okay, so when I'm teaching at the studio, people like it when I give them marker points, so I tend to do that anytime when teaching anybody. So like I would say a good place to start your mountain, I'm going to start with the big one on the left here. Maybe jump up from your blue horizon line about an inch, make a mark. That's just a good way to like, take a breath, take a sip. You made a mark. You made a dark mark on the sky that you just spent a really long time blending. So, okay, so now I'm going to use the skinny edge of my brush. If you want to use a smaller brush for this, you absolutely can. Anytime you feel like you need to use a smaller brush, do it. So I'm going to travel up. I'm not making a pyramid. It's going to be more like a hump, like a turtleback. Turtleback or dinosaur back. It's a Loch Ness monster sticking out of the water. Everything okay there, Paul? In Technologyville?
Kind of.
Uh-oh. The GoPro is not flashing red anymore. Oh, it's blinking red rapidly. Hopefully that's okay. So I'm just going to keep going until he tells me it's not recording.
Oh, no, we're still
okay.
at that.
Okay. So I'm going to make a little shorter mountain, kind of the same shape in the middle as I work my way. And they're lumpy. They're made of rocks and lava form them and all kinds of things. And then I'll rise up again over here. So then I've got this cool mountain range. Yours doesn't have to be the same. You can do Mount Hood in the background or anything really. You can do the Colorado Rockies, Mount Fuji, wherever your camping spot is. And then I'm just going to take and fill that in down to the blue line. And don't worry if you accidentally overlap. We're actually going to smudge this area out later, this area where the horizon is, with a nice tree line. And when I'm filling these in, that's when I kind of take a good hard look and think, oh, I could make this go up a little pointier at the top. Just add a little at a time. Our made-up mountain range here. This is such a great color. Sometimes I'll draw it out and fill it in with the big brush just to, you cover more area, quicker time. But if you feel like you need to touch it up with one of your smaller brushes, like touch up the area along here, you absolutely can do that. You don't get a lot of detail out of this big brush. When they're brand new and crispy like this, you can though. A lot of Paul's paintings are done strictly with just the big brush.